This finger pokes me quite hard, drags slowly up my back to around my neck.
Wow. Hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Dark Art Society podcast. I'm your host, Chet Zar. And today we have a very special guest, the legendary Mark Shostrom. He is a makeup effects legend. He's worked on such films as Nightmare on Elm Street, Nightmare on Elm Street 3, Phantasm II and III, Evil Dead 2, From Beyond. He's worked on a lot of the classics. Prince of Darkness. Anyway, I'll explain in the interview. I haven't interviewed him yet. I'm about to interview him in about 20 minutes. But had kind of weird synchronous events come up that made this interview happen, sort of. But we're not going to talk about makeup effects, at least not very much. We want to talk about his paranormal and ghost experiences, which he has a lot. He sent me a list, and there's a lot of them. And that's what he's interested in talking about, and that's definitely what I'm more interested in talking about, too. So that's coming up. I'm really excited for it. Let's see what's going on with me. I'm getting my last of my mystery boxes put together and shipped, the $500 mystery boxes. Those should be out the door by the end of the week. And along with other orders I've gotten in. And yeah, that's what I've been working on. I can't really talk about what I've been working on for the mystery boxes, but I guess next time maybe I can talk about them because they should be out to people by then. No, time after that maybe. I don't know. Anyway, yeah, so that's it. I'm just in work mode, shipping mode, and mystery box mode. If you want to support this podcast, you can go to Dark Art Society. I'm sorry. 6 years I've been doing this. I still can't get this right. Patreon.com/Dark Art Society. And you could join for as little as $1 a month. And you get your name read on the podcast every week. Or, when you join, you get your name read on the podcast. This week we have no new subscribers, so I don't have to worry about remembering someone's name. If you join at the $5 and above level, you get a 20% off coupon code for our sponsor, Skull Shop, SKULLSHOPPE. I'm currently using this skull for something I can't talk about yet. So yeah, that's for the $5 and above level. If you want to see what I'm up to, you can go to patreon.com/ChetZar. Join it also for as little as $1. And, yeah, I post everything I'm working on there, except mystery box stuff, because it's secret so far. But I'll post it soon. Is that it? I think that's it. Did I forget something? Maybe, I should write a list of everything I have to say in the beginning so that I don't always do this every episode. Well, I didn't do it this time, so I guess that's it. Yeah. Okay. So here we go with my interview with Mark Shostrom. Hope you enjoy it. Hello, Mark.
Hey.
Thank you so much for coming on the show. It's so cool to talk to you kind of in person for the first time.
Yeah. Well, with this video stuff, it's really almost the next best thing.
I know it is. Everybody knows your work. Nightmare on Elm Street. You worked on the first one.
I worked a week in Dave Miller's garage while he was on set.
And you worked at Nightmare on Elm Street 3 and From Beyond and Phantasm 2 and 3. So many movies. I've always been a fan since I first got into makeup effects. And so I always loved your work. So it's really cool to be able to talk to you
Well, I love your work too. It's the feeling is very much mutual.
Oh, thanks. That's so cool to hear. Yes, we're not going to talk makeup effects though. We're going to talk ghosts today, but I do want to. Yeah, that list you sent me was pretty amazing. That's like that's a lot of ghost experiences. But first off, before we start that, I do have to tell you one makeup effects story because
Oh yeah.
it kind of involves you.
Oh,
So sort of. It was I went to Italy to work on Cellar Dweller. My first movie. I was 18, I think. They sent me over to
work for John.
John Beekler, and so they sent me out there with Bill Butler and Mike Deek, and I
I
was
think I know it's.
what's that?
I think I know it's coming. But go ahead.
So I went out there. I'm green as hell. I had never been in a plane before, and all of a sudden I'm flying to Italy. I was like, I'm from San Pedro. I just, it was my first time working, I think, working on set, and so I was just kind of, doing whatever they told me. And at one point, for this, we worked on this other movie called Transformations, which was even below Cellar Dweller. It was like D level. It's so bad. And there was a scene where the creature gets burned and emerges. The actor this actor, Rex Smith. Remember Rex Smith,
In Cellar Dweller?
no, this is in Transformations. This guy, Rex Smith, he was like a teen idol. I think it was Rex Smith. Anyway, he was another kind of lower tier TV movie actor. Anyway, he turns into a creature. And at the end, he gets burned by a flamethrower. And then he bursts out of the ashes of the creature. Right? And we didn't have a creature that a body to burst out of. So one of those guys pulls out your From Beyond. I forgot that guy's name. The puppet you made, the big puppet with the
big spindly Pretorius monster.
yeah, the Pretorius monster, and it was the body that was that. And it was, I remember being a kid and seeing this going like, this is so beautiful. It was so cool and painted so well. It was so cool. And they're like,
This is all in Italy now?
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And at Charlie Band Studio, Full Moon, I guess.
Yeah, the studios, I know he was shooting all of his movies then
Right.
over there.
So anyway, they're like, okay, you have to spray paint this thing black. So your puppet thing, big foam.
Oh, what was left? They'd filmed the From Beyond stuff already, right?
Yeah. It was like in storage. Yeah. It had been done. And, and so I had to spray paint that thing black. And then we had to glue a bunch of nurnies on it.
Well, that explains. Go ahead.
And then he bursts out of it at the end of the movie. And it's just like, I remember being so like crestfallen to spray paint this beautiful piece of film history. I was like a young effects nerd.
That explains something because in my contract with them, we shipped everything obviously over for film, but I had in my contract that they have to pay for the crating and the shipping stuff back to me. And when it came back, it wasn't the whole creature. It was the heads and the lumpy suit, I believe, or maybe even that did. But there was stuff missing. And I remember calling up saying, where's the rest of it? So that explains. It's all over there being used in Italian monster movies today,
spray painted black. It was
Giovanni's taking it from spray painted black. He's painting it silver.
Yeah. So that was my Mark Shostrom story. That was one of my first makeup effects memories.
I heard there was a lot of antics going on with the different makeup effects crew, from my guys to John Beekler, like something about putting a fish in somebody's bed or something.
I didn't hear that one, but we did flip a rental car. I was in the passenger seat. Mike Deek would drive along the lot. It was empty, this film lot. It was a big film studio. And Mike Deek would drive at the end of every work day. He'd drive really fast and then put the brakes on and do a slide out. And then go off onto the freeway and drive home. Every day he'd do this. And then one day he went a little too fast, and there was a little kind of a gully at the end of the parking lot, and we just went boom, just like skidded over
Wow.
the edge and had to crawl out the windows, and dirt was falling on us. And yeah, it was
Well,
kind of
I have you reminded me of one Evil Dead story
okay.
before we get into ghosts, is that they gave me a rental car, which not a rental car, a production car, a car for me to use while we were there. But, I had my makeup effects guys, so we had to share the car. And anyway, they all left. It was just down to me and this guy named Bryant Tausick. And this station wagon was such a piece of garbage, and they would never replace it for me. I kept saying, you got to give me something that at least drives. I mean, this thing was barely running. So Bryant and I had a weekend, and we took it to the Color Purple property, which was near where we were shooting, all these rolling hills. And my goal was to see if we could get this thing 4 wheels in the air. So we go to the Color Purple property, and there's a fence there. And I'm in the driver's seat, and I said, Brian, go open the fence. And there was no sign that said it was electrified. And he reaches over, and he goes to open the fence, and he's like, so he falls on the ground. We kick the fence open, and he's like, I've just been electrocuted.
Oh my God.
And we get in this car, and we're going down this hill. There's another hill coming up. I'm going as fast as I can. And we just shot over this hill. We got, like just in a Burt Reynolds movie, we got, James Bond, 4 wheels in the air, and our heads hit the ceiling, and it slammed down and pieces flew off.
Excellent.
And I think there's in the Making of Evil Dead, you can see me driving it repeatedly over railroad tracks because I was trying to get it to just disintegrate till there was nothing left. And so they finally gave me a new car. They never did.
That's a good one. Wow, that's a good one. Okay, that's a good place to end and get into ghosts. Now, everybody who's a makeup effects fan, you got a couple of makeup effects stories, but this is why we're really here, is these ghost stories you have, these ghost or whatever you want to call them, paranormal experiences. You sent me. First off, I want to say how this podcast came to be. Just quickly, Mark and I follow each other on Twitter, and I've always wanted to ask Mark to be on the podcast, but with the guests that maybe I grew up on, I get a little nervous about asking people, so I didn't ask you, even though I've wanted to ask you for a long time. And then the other day, I just had the notion. It was like I saw you on Twitter. And I was like, I'm just going to ask him to be on the podcast. I'm just going to do it. Like, that's kind of how I do this podcast.
Good timing.
Yeah. And so I sent you a message, and then I clicked out of the message asking if you wanted to be on. I clicked out of the message. The first thing I see on my feed is you saying, I'm going to be on a podcast talking about paranormal experiences and ghosts and stuff. I'm really excited about it. And I was like, oh, he's a ghost guy. Cool. And so then I went back and messaged you, that'd be great, because I'm into this stuff. We talk about this on the podcast, and then we set that up, and you were like, you wanted to talk about ghosts more than effects, and I'm like, perfect for me. Then later that day, my son calls me up, and I answer the phone. He goes, Who did the makeup effects for Evil Dead 2? They're really good. And I was like, I can't believe you just asked me that. It's like,
Wow.
That was these weird cosmic synchronicities that happened around this.
Synchronicity.
So I think this was probably going to be a good episode. Anyway, so you've had some exceptional ghost experiences.
Yes, I have. And by the way, I just turned down that space heater. So if the sound intrudes, just let me know. I'll turn it off.
No problem. I don't hear it at all. So, so tell me.
Well, I've had most of the things that happened were at school I was teaching. I mean, in the past, I've had 2 sort of paranormal ghostly experiences. One was in college, 1975. I was staying with my uncle and cousin in this house that was about 100 years old in Black Hills, South Dakota. And this house was way out from anywhere. It was out in the middle of the woods. It had its own road going to it. And I found out later, my cousin Melinda, who was 11 at the time, she had heard a woman crying upstairs. And it was just her and her uncle.
Oh,
She'd mentioned this to me later, that on many occasions from one particular room, she'd hear the sound of a woman crying, and she'd go in and there's nobody there. I didn't know this at the time, but what happened with me was my uncle was in hospital for back surgery, so Melinda went to stay with her mother. So I was just staying there alone with the dog. I was there one weekend, and big expansive house, and all carpet except there was a one hallway that came to the bathroom. Well, it was all carpeted. Basically, to describe the layout between where I was sleeping and one end of the house. My head was right by an open door, which was the bathroom. And there was another door in the bathroom leading to a hall, which led to the living room.
mm.
So I'm there with my little fire, turn out the lights, put my head down, and I heard what sounded like a really heavy box coming from way far away in the house from the living room.
Ew.
Coming closer, I could hear it coming down the hallway towards the bathroom. This,
Oh my God.
and I could hear it hit the tile and went, stopped right at my head.
Really?
I had my eyes closed, and I was so terrified I couldn't even move. I couldn't open my eyes. I couldn't open.
Oh my
I
God.
couldn't do anything. I have no idea to this day what it was,
That's
but it was really terrifying.
that's a
And,
good one. It's scary.
yeah, that was crazy. And the other thing that happened before the school stuff was on the Queen Mary, which of course is noted for being haunted. And I knew that. My girlfriend and I decided on a whim to go for July 4th weekend. So we called up for reservations, and they said, well, we're all booked up. It's July 4th weekend. Everybody wants to stay on the Queen Mary and watch the fireworks. Somehow my girlfriend sweet talked somebody into saying, well, we've got this one room left. Well, oh, okay, we'll take it. I remember it was room M123. And there was not anything earth-shattering, like no objects moving, but we're lying there, the lights just went out, and all of a sudden from the next room, we hear this
I can't hear it.
tapping on the wall.
Okay.
Just like somebody's got a pencil and they're tapping on the wall.
Creepy.
And this went on for a while, and I thought, Jesus, we're trying to sleep. What's somebody doing in there? Oh. So I poked my head out the door to see the room number, and you can call room to room. So I dialed that room number to ask the people to please stop that noise, and I could hear the phone ringing through the wall. It just kept ringing. There's nobody there.
Ew.
So I go and knock on the door, and there's no answer. Go back to bed. Tap, 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 tap. This went on for hours. Never figured that one out.
That's creepy.
But I know that room had not been rented a while because we didn't have hot water at first. And we called the desk and they said, oh, that room has not been rented in a long time.
Oh, wow.
We had to pump the water. The hot water has to come in from the mainland. Never figured that out. But it was, my girlfriend told me later, she felt that there was something standing there looking at her all night long.
Oh, really?
Queen Mary is full of cool stories like that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. There's tons of them. I stayed with my wife, and I did a convention there, and we stayed in a room. I should have asked her this before, but she's got so many stories. I can't keep them all straight, but I'm pretty sure she heard or saw something when we stayed in this room in the Queen Mary. I can't remember what it was though. Something weird happened.
I'd like to actually do a ghost hunt there. There's one room there that is so haunted that they don't use it for anything. Or apparently, one story I heard is, and you can go on the internet and find out what room number it is, where some people had just laid down and hammered down and glued down the carpet because they wanted to rent it out. So they just put down new carpet. Go out, come back, go out to lunch or whatever, come back, and they open the door and all the carpet had been ripped off.
Oh my God.
Whoa.
Yeah. That's a bit violent. Yeah,
Yeah,
I mean, I've had several paranormal experiences. I've had a lot of out of body experiences. That's like my big thing that I have. I have them a lot.
like astral
Yeah,
projections.
like where I'm floating around and I can't really control myself. Like it happens a lot. um,
Is that something? It just happens
it
when it does.
it happens when it does. I've never been able to control it. I've
Wow,
never been able to make it happen. I've tried, and I've kind of gotten close, but I've never been able to make it happen. And then it just happens every, I don't know, 3 to 6 months now, maybe. Where
that's
I'm,
pretty cool.
yeah, it's kind of cool. Sometimes it's feels really good. Sometimes it feels really scary, like there's a presence in the room. I had one where very real quick. I had one fairly recently, a couple of years ago, where I got. I don't know if you've ever had them, but if the first thing that happens, it's like a sleep paralysis type thing. They call it sleep paralysis, but to me that doesn't change anything. It doesn't make it like not paranormal or weird because I've had so many weird things happen in that state. It's I don't know. There's more to it, I think. And I was in that state in between where I was about to float out of my body, but I was stuck in my body. But I was aware and my body couldn't move. It's like paralyzed. And I heard this old hag woman cursing in some kind of Slavic or Eastern European language, cursing at me. And she was pissed, like, rah, 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 totally cursing at me. And I knew it was at me. And I sensed that she was over on the other side of the room in the shape of like a big dome, like about so big, just a couple
That's
feet.
creepy.
Yeah, a couple feet high. And she was cursing at me. I could hear it clear as day, clear as day. And she was coming to me closer, closer, and closer. And I was able to, which sometimes happen, I can kind of wake myself up and pull myself out of it. And the first thing I thought of was, I've told this before on the podcast, but I'm telling it again. The first thing I thought of was like, I thought Baba Yaga. And then I thought, that just popped in my head. And I was like, well, okay, I saw the new Hellboy trailer a year ago. And there's a Baba Yaga character in that. Maybe that's why I thought of that. I didn't think much of it. Then I decided to, a couple days later, because it sounded like an Eastern European language or Slavic or something. And so, and I kept thinking about it. And so I looked up Baba Yaga, and it's like the Baba Yaga myth is in Romania and like Hungary and it's like it's all in that part of the world is there's a myth of Baba Yaga as this witch that she has this weird hut and anyway, it was kind of uncanny that it was like, I know it was some kind of, I thought it was, I remember at the time I was thinking it sounded like Russian or Romanian. And when I looked it up and saw that, I was like, oh shit.
And this happened with her just the one time.
Yeah. Just the one time. But I've had others like that. The first one I had, when I was maybe 12 or 13, I had this, I was in my body trapped, and I felt a presence outside of my door, like, oh shit, and a terrible dread. And then all of a sudden, this dude was standing next to me. I couldn't move, but I could see, and I could see through my eyelids. And he was standing next to me. He looked like a trucker. He had a down vest, and he was holding a pillow up in front of his head. Like it was weird, almost like a cartoon pillow. And he just kept hitting me with the pillow and putting it back and covering his head, hitting me. And a voice in my head was like, he can only scare you. He can't hurt you. And, but it was terrifying. And I shook myself out of it. And it was like, I kind of watched him vanish like in a movie when you wake up from a dream. It's all kind of wavery and it just disappeared.
It sounds like you're tuned into some psychic abilities, and I think everybody has them.
I do too.
But as people grow older, unless they kind of stay connected, it fades. But, I've got a couple of friends who are psychic, and one who will feature in the story I'm going to tell you. Her name is Amber, and she makes her living at that. And when you meet a true psychic and they tell you things that they can't possibly know,
Yep.
it kind of makes you wake up and go, wow, there's something here.
Yeah. Yeah. My wife is naturally talented in that way. Also, she's not, she's never been really into it. She's always been kind of like, it's just like a talent she has. But yeah, I remember when we were going to therapy in the 90s, the therapist, it came up that she was kind of psychic, and the therapist was a bit skeptical. And my wife told her something about this ring that she owned from someone, and the therapist was like, didn't know what to do. It's just like that. You know that skeptic Michael Shermer. Have you ever heard of that guy?
I've heard of him.
He's like the big skeptic guy. He's skeptic of all this psychic stuff. He had an experience where I think it was his father's funeral. An old radio turned on, and it was playing like his father's favorite song, and it sounded like old big band music. Totally this random thing. And he admits that happened, but instead of going like there's something going on, he's like, yeah, he just kind of blows it off because he's a skeptic and it doesn't fit his worldview. You know?
There's so much that we don't know yet.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
you can't discount it. You know, a lot of people have so many similar experiences.
Mm-hmm. And the thing is, I think if everyone was honest and wasn't afraid of being ostracized for talking about this stuff, you know, more people would, you know, I think everybody probably knows somebody that's had an experience if they hadn't had one themselves. It's just that
if you sit around a table with 5 or 6 people and you bring up the topic of UFOs or ghosts,
yep,
absolutely, a couple of people are going to raise their hand. Well, hey, you know, here's what happened to me.
Yep.
It's very prevalent.
Yeah.
Both of them.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think they're connected somehow. I don't know how, but I think all of the paranormal stuff has some kind of connection, because all the alien abduction stories I've heard sound exactly like out of body experiences. And I've had the out of body experiences. So it's like, to me, they sound very similar. So there's some connection. I don't know what the connection is, but I feel like there's
a lot of theories that they are connected. I have two, it's maybe three, several people I know have had alien abduction experiences.
Oh, really?
2 members of my family. And
wow.
When they told me their stories, they're different, but they're similar, and they're all pretty mind-blowing. These are all very sane, highly intelligent people, and most of them in the top level of their fields. They're really smart. But the experiences are pretty incredible.
Yeah. It's, you know, it's something's happening. I don't know what, but something's happening.
We're like doing an infomercial for smoking at this point.
Yeah, I think you might be the first smoker I've had on the podcast, so I don't feel so bad now. So let's enjoy it. I'm going to enjoy it. I'm finally not worried about offending my guests with my smoking.
Do you actually feel like, oh, you want to blow it away so it doesn't bother you?
Yeah, I do. It's a uncontrolled response. I try and keep it under the screen sometimes so people can't see it. But you know, this podcast about good, fun conversations, and sometimes a cigarette is required for a fun conversation.
And coffee.
And coffee, yeah. Although I already have my coffee, I should have gotten another one. But okay, I would like to hear about these more recent ghost stories, because you sent me a list of. You said it was a partial list, and I was like, wow, that's probably
partial list of everything that happened within between 6 weeks and 3 month period.
That's like
a lot of stuff happened in the first week.
That's amazing. It's you know, it's one of the, I don't think I've ever heard anybody who's had so many experiences as what you had on that list. It's kind of incredible.
And it wasn't just me. It was about between 15 and I think 18 or 19 other people.
Wow.
So basically, do you want me to start at the
Yeah.
beginning?
Yeah. Yeah. Start at the beginning.
Basically, I was teaching. I won't mention the school, but people can figure that out.
Yeah.
Um, Teaching at a place in LA, a vocational makeup school, and I started there in, excuse me, 2005 in the fall. And I worked there for about 5.5 years. So around, I think it was May 2007. I may have the sequence of events a little off. I'm
Mhm.
just going by memory, and I just reread my notes. Because by notes, I mean when stuff started to happen, I sent daily emails to myself of what happened to
Hmm.
who, and I just kept a running log of incidents because it was like, Jesus Christ, this is getting pretty crazy. And how it started, let me think, how did it start? Around May, to describe the location first, where all this happened. The school is a long building, uh, maybe 100 feet long. And on the street side, there's a store that sells makeup and whatnot. There's a couple of classrooms, and there's a little zigzag corner that goes left and right. Anyway, a zigzag corner, and then it's a long hallway that extends the rest of the building, so close to 100 feet.
Mm-hmm.
All classrooms on both sides. And there's a hair room over here, hair sinks and all that. And at the end of the building, and anybody who works there, like my old bosses, know exactly what I'm describing. But at the end of the building, there's a 2-level. On the bottom level, you have stairs going down, and you have a student lounge lunch area.
Mm-hmm.
Across the hall is a photo room for photographing final projects. Up the stairs, one of those stairs like that, there's a landing. And on one side, you have the teacher's room. Between that, on the landing, you have male and female bathrooms. And the last thing you have on the other side of the landing is a library. So what happened in May is they decided to do some reconstruction, and they had guys, I do remember, coming in with big scrapers to scrape up the tile floor in the photo room. But the photo room also had boxes of ultracal plaster. Instead of the 100-pound bags, we split it up into like 25 or 50-pound boxes. So it's easier to handle, easier to store. So we had, a couple hundred of these heavy boxes, and that we had to have people move them across to the student lounge while they're tearing up this old photo room. The building itself was over 100 years old. In fact, I sent you a picture of it from the 1920s.
Right. That's the funny thing is that if you I know the area, and I've been there before, and I would never, from the outside, you'd never think it was haunted. It looks very modern kind of on that street.
These places.
I know.
I never thought that. I never had any experiences there. I started teaching in, I think it was September 2005. I was just teaching a night class from 6 p.m. to 10 p.m. Then I'd shut out, close the doors, close out.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd be there alone. I never felt anything weird. I never gave this stuff any sort of thought. And it was in 2007, when they started reconstruction, or whatever you call it, that this stuff seemed to begin.
That's interesting.
And around this time, and let's see, I was teaching when this happened. I remember I was teaching days and nights because there'd been a change in employees or something. And they asked me if I could teach a day class from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m., take an hour for lunch or whatever, and the night class from 6 to 10 p.m. So basically, I'd get there early. I'm always early. I'd get there at 7:30, and after closing out at the end of the day, to shut down and do my paperwork, I'd leave at around 10:30 at night. So I was there, 15 hours a day. I was the only human being who was there all the time, day and night.
Right.
People would come and go, but I was the one constant there. And that seemed to factor into how things kind of gravitated towards me.
Right.
But basically, not Again, not remembering the order of things, but there's a cleaning guy named Hugo. Hugo and Jesus, his son, his teenage son, would come in at 9:30 or 10 at night, and they do vacuum the carpets, mop the building, clean counters, and then they'd leave. And Hugo and I would always communicate with each other because whoever was the last person to leave had to do the alarm code punching in the number.
Mm-hmm.
So if I was leaving, I'd say, Hugo, I'm checking out now. So he'd know, vice versa. So I
Okay. So,
got to
so,
know.
so it was locked. You were in there and you had to have a key code to get in. So it's not like someone
Yes,
could
in
have gotten
fact,
in and messed around with you easily.
no, in fact, the way the building is and the way the whole system worked is the classes ended at around 5 p.m. The store was always open, I think, till 7.
Mm-hmm.
Whenever the store personnel left at 7 p.m., they locked the door. So the store was separate. It was always locked.
Wow.
The
Okay.
cleaning crew did not go in there.
Mm. Okay.
Um, unless I guess they could unlock it and get in. But anyway, the store was locked at 7 p.m. The rest of the building was open. When my students left around, 9:30 or 10, I would lock the doors and do my shutdown routine and all that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, at one point in my communications with Hugo, we'd always chat afterwards, after class. And I went in the hair room for something, just put something away or wash my hands. And he happened to be in there mopping. And he says, "Hey, Mark, do you ever see anything weird here at night?" And I'm like, "No."
Want a coffee?
Oh,
And
yes, please. Sorry.
are you ordering a coffee?
Yeah. I texted my wife, "Can you please make me a coffee?" She sticks her head in. "You want a coffee?" Sorry.
You heard me.
I'm sorry to interrupt.
Hugh asked me if I'd seen anything weird, and I said, "No, why?" And he told me he had a cleaning routine.
Mm-hmm.
He would come in, he and Jesus with their mops and all that, and to do the classrooms in a consistent, quick, and logical fashion. Hugo would go to each room, turn on the light, open the door, put the rubber door stop in, walk in, and all the classrooms had the tall canvas director chairs.
Mm-hmm.
So in every classroom, maybe be 20 of them. I don't know.
Okay.
But the students were supposed to put them up at the end of the day. A lot of them didn't. So he'd go in and put the remaining chairs up on the counters. So
Mm-hmm.
lights on, door open, chairs up. Then he'd go to the next room, same thing. He'd work his way all around, go to the zigzag corner. There's a couple classrooms there. He'd come back. And he told me by the time he got to the first room he'd done, the lights would be out.
Oh, wow.
Or one time he did his routine and he starts to come back and comes around the zigzag corner and all the lights he turned on were off.
Wow.
He said this happened every night.
Oh, my God.
And one time he goes to a room that he turned the lights on and put the chairs up and the lights were out. He turns the light on and there's a chair in the middle of the room put back.
Wow.
He said that the chair thing really creeped him out.
Yeah.
And maybe the lights went off, but not the chairs.
Yeah.
So that was creepy. So I'm getting an indication, there's something going on here. And at the time I was teaching, as I said, days and nights in my night class, there was a girl named Colette. I remember Colette and Jill, they were kind of a team. Colette went to the library one night to do a little research. And she came back, and I was in the hallway or something, and she was walking along like this, like she's dazed. I said, "What happened? What's up? Are you okay?" And she told me that when she was up in the library, she felt some force pressing on her.
Ew.
And she felt pressure inside her chest. And she was really shaken. And I was concerned too, because I didn't know if it was some physical thing.
Right.
You want me to call 911? No, I'm okay. And she went home. And she told me the next day, she lived in Canyon Country, as I recall, which is quite a ways away. She said the whole ride home, this pressure was with her,
Ooh.
stayed with her most of the night.
That's weird.
And yeah, I mentioned Jill because this is a makeup effects side. I remembered Colette and Jill, and this I have to talk about makeup effects for a minute because in my intro to every class, I tell them about how we came to LA and I knew John Chambers from
Mm.
Planet of the Apes, who had also done work for the CIA.
Yep.
And when Jill came in a few days later, she goes, "I've got an aunt, and she used to work at the CIA." And after you gave your introduction, I went home and said to my aunt, I asked her, "Did you ever work with a makeup man named John Chambers?" And she said her aunt did a double take, and she goes, "How did you know that?" I said, "Because my teacher." Anyway, that was pretty cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, back to the ghostly stuff. This is just starting up, and
That's a lot just to be starting up. That's a good start. I love it.
So after Colette's experience, she was okay after that, and things calmed down. And I was a bit of a practical joker. I like to amuse my students a lot.
A lot of makeup effects people are.
And I love teaching too there, especially when students were receptive and had a good sense of humor.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you.
So things calmed down. It's a few days later.
Mm-hmm.
And we're kind of, the students, I think they were testing or doing something. And I had to go up to the library for something, to Xerox something.
Mm-hmm.
I came back, and as a practical joke, it's night. There's nobody here but this one class. It's night, and I come running down the hall screaming, "Get me out of here, get me out of here." I burst in the classroom and said, "You'll never believe what I just saw." And of course, everybody's on edge after Colette's incident, and acting like, something happened, and everybody's freaking out. What? I'm just kidding. And a few minutes after that, we're shutting down, and I had these two plastic heads in my arms, or in both arms, and I had to go deliver them to the hair room. And it had the metal L-shaped handles where you had to do that.
Mm-hmm.
But my arms are full, so I hit the door handle with my elbow, and as I open the door and I'm about to hit the other thing, the light switch with my other elbow, the lights turn on.
Wow.
A couple minutes after my practical joke, and it felt like something saying, "Gotcha."
Yeah, right.
So you're going to mess with us, we're going to mess with you. It was very deliberate. It was very creepy.
Yeah.
Because you had to physically turn on the room lights. They didn't go on when you open the door automatically. To open the door, if you wanted the lights on, you had to click them on.
Right.
So that was kind of the beginning of it. And at the same time, I'm noticing whether in my day class or my night class, right by the door, there's a thermostat. And you always set it to, 72, 75.
Mm.
And this is summer, so I'd probably set it to 70, 72. All of a sudden, I noticed the room is getting really, really cold.
Wow.
I look at the thermostat, and it's set to like 30.
Ooh.
So I'd go out, go to the bathroom, come back, whatever. I'd set it back to 70, go out, come back. It's set back to 30.
Wow.
And I'd ask my students, "Hey guys, please don't mess with this." And we're like, we haven't touched it. And this happened in the day class as well. Constantly, set it back to 70, go out to lunch, come back, and somebody set it to 30.
Wow.
That happened all the time.
Wow.
Let me think what else happened next.
Those are good ones.
Okay. Now it gets a little interesting. I mean, like it's not already. So there's a woman named Amanda, and I will text her so she watches this.
Okay.
She was in, and I'll probably get this wrong, I forget her actual title. She worked for the school in some student services division where she would help them guide their careers to get work after they graduated.
Sounds like a good school, on a side note.
Yeah, it was a great school. They had great people.
Yeah.
Amanda was one of the best, and she was really, really smart and
that's cool.
real positive force. And she knew a lot about makeup and the movie business. And she and I got to be pretty good friends. And let's see, around this time, Yeah, I was kind of mentioning to Amanda what was happening, but we didn't really get into it. But Amanda told me she was in the store during the day, just, hobnobbing, talking to students, talking to people that work in the store. And across the street, there's a coffee house named Romancing the Bean.
Mm.
And I think it was a Lifetime channel or one of those small movie channels was filming something. And Amanda's in the store, and a producer or the host of the Lifetime TV show just wandered over, pretended to be looking at things, but Amanda could sense that this woman is here for something else. And they kind of started chatting. And the woman asked Amanda, apparently, Amanda found out later the woman is a psychic. And the
Mm.
woman asked Amanda, have you seen him? Have you seen the man?
No way.
And Amanda looks at her and goes, you mean the guy in overalls? And the Lifetime lady goes, yes, that's him.
Wow.
Lifetime lady got the sense of some man in overalls in the building across the street and came over to kind of see what she could pick up. And
Wow.
she happened to run into Amanda, and Amanda had seen this guy in overalls. So what happened was, okay, all the stuff I'm telling you is summer of 2007. Amanda told me that starting around, I think 2005, the library was not a library then. It was an accounting room where the two accountants worked to do payroll, stuff like that. Around this time, or even a little before, there were two girls who worked in accounting they're the only two people in this whole thing I've not talked to. I've been trying to track them down for a couple of years. Excuse me. Apparently, Amanda told me, well, not apparently, she did tell me that at some point, the girls didn't want to work up there anymore. They couldn't do payroll or anything up there. They do the payrolls, Xeroxing at Kinko's or whatever, because they kept seeing some guy on the landing.
Wow.
This guy features a lot. I just call him Overalls Man. Now, Amanda had seen him around 2005 a couple of times. So at the end of the class day, around 6, 7 p.m., you got some students have gone, some are straggling, some are coming in for night class. So below this landing, there's, activity of people, students coming back and forth. And Amanda saw this guy in overalls with slicked back black hair. She said it was like a 1920s style hairstyle.
Wow.
Black work boots. And she thought he was a repairman or maybe the father of one of the girls that he's picking up or something like that. And she said hello to him. He didn't respond at all.
Oh, my God.
She saw him again. And she said it was closer to the day classes leaving, when all the students are leaving, that he was kind of leaning over the railing, just watching them like he was a protector of some sort.
Wow.
A couple of people have described him to me that way. It's just like this very benevolent watcher, watching to make sure the girls are okay, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, that is cool.
So let me check my notes really quick to see what might have happened.
I have to write that down. Benevolent Watcher. That's such a great. That'd be a
Benevolent Watcher.
That'd be a great painting title.
Weird little things happened around that time. Like I was, it's nothing big, but I was testing the students, and Mark had a quiet rule. Like, I like a quiet classroom anyway, but when you're testing, which is doing makeup on your partner, just no talking, just be like you're on a movie set.
Right.
Makeup, focus, no talking. So the room is pin drop quiet. And we heard this metallic clink, like a lot of the students had a metal powder bowl or something like that. And everybody had a metal palette knife. It's like somebody took a palette knife and clinked it on the bowl. It was a very, very distinctive metallic clink.
Wow.
And this is a totally silent room, and everybody looks. They had brushes in their hands. They're busy. They had sponges. They're not messing.
Right.
So everybody looks at each other and they continue working, and it happened again. Plink. And then I don't remember exactly when. Then the electronic paper towel dispenser started going off. And this is one of those where you put your hand under the little laser and
Mm-hmm.
one towel. And it was always during me doing a quiet lecture, talking to students, and everybody's gathered around me in a circle way on the other side of the room behind us. The paper towel dispenser comes out. That started to happen a lot. So there was weird electronic things with
Wow.
the thermostat, the towel dispenser.
That's amazing.
And, I'm probably going a little bit out of order, but roughly in order. So we're talking May, maybe we're getting to late May, early June. So one night, I finished my night class. So the only people in the building is me. And I know Hugo's here because I saw him earlier, Hugo and Jesus with their mops. And I was teaching in the effects classroom at night. Or no, I wasn't teaching at night in there. I was doing something because I had two classrooms. The night classroom was small, the day classroom was big. But I had, I might have my personal stuff spread out in both rooms. So I was in the big effects room for some reason, which is at the top of the stairs leading to the student lounge, and I hear this loud music. Now the student lounge had a little, music system, low Muzak coming through, whoever, Michael Jackson or Madonna or whatever, very low volume. I'm there late at night and I hear just this loud music. I'm like, what the fuck? Can I say the F word on your show?
Yes,
here?
you can say any word you want.
I just did.
Well, almost any.
So I go to check out and the door's open and Hugo's in there. He's mopping and he's looking around too. And I go, Hugo, what happened? He goes, I don't know. It just started up. And he said it happens sometimes. It's really, really loud.
Wow.
And I left and he said it continued for maybe a good half an hour and then just shut off.
Oh my God.
What I found out later is there's no volume, there's no adjustment to the music in that room. It's 100 feet away in the store.
Oh, wow. Okay, the store's locked.
The store's locked. It controls the volume and the music for the lounge 100 feet away. There's some knobs underneath the counter that turn it on and off.
Wow.
So again, who or whatever turned on the music loudly in the lounge after 10 o'clock, you have to physically do that from a locked room 100 feet away.
Wow.
So but about 20 minutes after I left that very same night is the music. Hugo told me the next day he had come out and he was heading up the stairs to start mopping the hallway. And out of the corner of his eye, he saw something at the top of the stairs by the teacher room. And he said it was this wispy, smoky thing. And he watched it. He was terrified. What is this? It's wafting down the stairs and turns to go down the other part of the stairs and goes into the lounge where he just was. He said he even saw the reflection of the wispy smoke in the glass doors.
Wow.
So Hugo got all the good stuff. He's there at night, like he gets the best parts,
Wow, that's incredible. Have you done like researched the building's history much, or?
Yeah, I'll get to that a little bit.
Okay, yeah.
Excuse me. Actually, it was Colette. I forgot about this part. I'm glad you mentioned it. Colette, who had chest pressure experience that kind of started this all. At the time, she was curious if there was something up in the library. Obviously, she was curious because of her experience. So she did a little Googling around and found a Burbank historical website. And she was the one that found the picture that I sent you of the building in the 1920s.
Mm-hmm.
And she said it was Orr Brothers Garage, ORR Brothers Garage.
Mm-hmm.
It had been a Firestone tire store after that, and I think a department store.
Mm-hmm.
Long history, over 100 years, or at the point when this was happening, 85, 90 years.
Right.
And I've looked a bit into the Orr brothers. There were two of them. I think one died out of state. I haven't looked into them in a few years, but I'd like to find out more about them. My feeling is the guy in the overalls has got to be one of the Orr brothers,
I bet you.
but there was more than one ghost there. So the other was a female.
Really?
We'll get to her in a second.
Wow.
I told you this. When I tell people, I don't tell too many people about the story, and certainly not all the events. But when I mentioned it, I said, first of all, what I'm going to tell you, it's straight out of a movie, but it's all real.
Yeah.
Because and it was. I have to tell you, Chet, when this started up and it started to build, it was so exciting. I can't even describe how excited I was to go to work every day and every night to see what's going to happen.
Really?
Because it was always weird stuff. And I'm starting to keep a diary, not a diary, but an email chain of what happened to who and when. And around the same time, I mean, stuff is just like building and building. Like one student told me about a student in another class who was in the female bathroom upstairs and her cell phone dropped on the floor. She bends over to reach for it, and then the cell phone shot across the room.
Ooh, wow.
So that was happening.
Let me interrupt you real quick. You've never, this seems like documentary worthy, or at least like ghost TV show worthy. You've never been interviewed?
Well, actually, no, I've never talked about this. The most I did was I wrote a screenplay based on the events because I knew.
Oh, that's cool. After
it all happened, I knew I'd want to write about it. And for many, many years, I couldn't figure an angle. And to make a long story short, my mother passed away, two of my best friends, my cat. I had all these deaths that happened like one after the other, and I was in a real state of depression and grieving.
Mm-hmm.
And I happened to be talking to a friend at Amblin one night who worked over there, and we never talked at night, but he called me late at night because he was concerned about me, and he knew about the ghosts, and he encouraged me to write something about it. And we started talking about it, and I said, I don't know how to do it. I'm so depressed, and all I experience every day is grief. And he said, well, why don't you take one of your characters and make your main character being grieving and work your way into the ghost story that way. And I thought that's an idea. And I hung up about 2 a.m. with him, and I started writing, and it went on for 6 months. And that was the key. So the story is mainly about ghosts and grief, and it worked out.
Oh, how cool.
So it worked better dramatically rather than a documentary.
Right.
I feeling but so yeah.
Anyway, yeah, it's like, in the paranormal community, there are these, there's like that ranch, I forgot the Skinwalker Ranch. There's like stories about different hauntings, and this sounds like, worthy of at least, being considered in the lore of big hauntings. Because I mean, it's kind of a lot of stuff that you're talking about.
Yeah, we're not even done.
I know it's already.
It's like, and seriously, this is like in the first week.
It's incredible.
I'm not kidding you, except for the stories of the girls, the accountant girls, and a few other things that will factor in. Because of course, by this time, weird stuff is happening. I've talked with Amanda, who works at the school. I've talked with her about it. Now, she didn't work in that building. She worked in another building entirely, but she'd come down in the afternoons and visit every day, and we got to know each other. But as this is happening, I'm starting to keep my email diary. I'm talking to everybody who works there. Say, have you ever had any experiences, anything weird? I'm not trying to put words in their mouth. Say, I've seen a ghost. I say, you ever seen anything strange here? I just kind of leave it wide open. And I was surprised at how many people said, it's funny you would ask that.
Really?
There was a guy named Sean who worked in the store, super nice guy. And he would be there at the store on Saturdays. He and his boyfriend, Matt, would work in the store on Saturdays. And generally, with a few exceptions, there were no classes on Saturdays, but they kept the store open for the public
Mm.
and students who want to come there on the weekend and purchase makeup and supplies. And I asked Sean that question. Have you seen, has anything weird happened to you? And he goes, there were a couple things. Well, what? So on the ground floor across from my effects classroom, there's a unisex bathroom. There's only one bathroom downstairs, that unisex bathroom. The other two, the male and female, are upstairs on the landing. So Sean is in the store. He goes to the bathroom and he opens the door to leave. And he said he's walking away. This happened really quickly. But as he's walking away, the door is closing. The bolt latch that you have to physically turn comes out, and it prevents the door from closing.
Oh,
So
wow.
he said this happened, and he heard the click, and he turns around like, oh my goodness, that's creepy.
That is.
And he saw the chairs arranged in the library one night. There's this I wasn't quite sure what to make of this at first. He said that he went in the library, and now the library is about 10 or 12 computer stations arranged around every wall, and each one has a little black swivel chair, the office chair. Students generally, when they do research, when they're done, they just get up and walk away. Nobody arranges the chairs. Sean had walked into the library to shut out the lights, and the chairs were all in a complete perfect circle.
Wow.
And he said that was creepy.
It's creepy.
And
that's a good one.
Around this time, I had made friends with a woman named Maria. Maria had been a student of mine, and we ended up actually going into business together. But in 2007, I invited her and her daughter by, her daughter Amber, who was about 11 or 12, because they were both very psychic, and especially Amber. I call Amber the psychic lightning rod. But I told Maria about the ghostly stuff. I said, you should come by one night and see if you pick up anything, any vibes. And she goes, oh, come, I'll bring my compass too. What? Okay. A compass. And Maria and Amber came by. I think they were before my night class. So, I don't have any responsibility to be in the classroom. I've got an hour off. And they came in right at the rear door, and we sat on the stairs. The first thing she said was, oh, something just touched me. And Amber goes, oh, I just got poked. So they're like picking up stuff. Right. This is right by the photo room, right by where they're on the stairs where that wispy thing had come down a few nights before. So all the stuff is centered around the rear of the building. The library, the landing, the photo room. A lot of the stuff was focused around there, but it was never limited to there because, as I'll tell in a little bit, the things happened all over the entire school. So Maria pulls out the compass, and we're looking at it, and it starts like spinning just rapidly every direction.
Wow.
This is crazy.
That is crazy.
You think, let me check my notes and see what happened next.
Yeah, sure.
I have to adjust my glasses here.
No worries.
I'm trying to think of when it got hot and heavy. Oh,
when it got hot and heavy? It hasn't been hot and heavy yet? Sheesh.
I forgot to mention something about Maria. And she said that we went in the photo room. Let me relight my cigarette.
Okay.
She went in the photo room, and she wrote me later that night, and she got the strong impression of a young female, and said, not an older guy, not an old man with overalls. She goes, no, there's a presence down here of a young female who is crying. So she was pushed against the wall.
Whoa.
Maria said, I see ruffles on her dress and some blood on her shirt.
Ooh.
And she's upset from being pushed against the wall. What else did she say? Hmm. Oh, she said, I read her email last night. She said the sort of the lights going off and the chairs, things like that. That's her. That's not the guy in the overall. She
Oh,
said
wow.
she likes to scare people because she gets a kick out of it. It's her it's her way of relieving stress. I remember she said that very specifically.
What a trip.
So around this time, as things are building and happening more frequently, I'm starting to I'm starting to feel a little bit weird. So I'll go there at 7:30 in the morning to my day class, have an hour off, night class. But the times I was alone there before Hugo, the cleaning guy, and Jesus showed up, I would have to do my shutdown routine every night, whether they were there or not. I still had to go around to every classroom, turn off the air conditioning, make sure a student hadn't left their wallet or their purse or something,
Mhm.
things like that. I'd go check every classroom. The store, I don't remember if I did anything with the store. I think it was always locked. I didn't have to worry about that. And then I'd come back. And when this was going on, I started to feel like I was being watched at times.
Mm.
Now, have you ever been in a public place or you're talking to someone and you feel eyes on
Oh,
you?
yeah, yeah,
You look and somebody's staring right at you.
definitely.
I'll experience that. It's kind of like that, but it's amped up
Hmm.
a lot. And it wasn't my imagination because I wasn't thinking about it. I was just going about doing my task.
Right.
And it would be just like a switch. All of a sudden, I feel like, oh, Jesus, there's something here with me. And I'd turn around because it would make all the hairs on your body just
So
go
it's
right.
so it wasn't like you were creeping yourself out. You were kind of distracted and just focused on.
And I don't get scared easily. I've been through tornadoes and hurricanes, and I've been shot at.
Oh,
I've been assaulted. I was almost in a plane crash.
wow.
Stuff doesn't scare me.
Right.
I've had paranormal experiences that were weird and creepy, but I know that a ghost can't kill you.
Right.
It can't physically harm you. So that didn't concern me, but it was a very disconcerting feeling. And not necessarily, it was creepy, but there was no question that there was something there.
I've had that feeling for sure. Like, usually in those out of body states, because a lot of people see things like shadow people and stuff. Sometimes
Right?
I don't know if have you seen that documentary, The Nightmare?
No.
Oh, you have to watch it. It's so good. It's so good.
Send me the link if you can.
Yeah, I will. It's really good, but it's all anecdotal stuff about people having sleep paralysis and seeing shadow people and stuff. And as someone who's experienced that, it really rings true. Almost all the stories, I was like, "Wow, I've experienced something like that." But many times in these out of bodies experiences, I can't see anyone, but I'm completely conscious, and I know there's something there. I can feel it. You just feel it. It's just
As a human being, you instinctively can tell. It's the same way where
yeah,
you're talking to somebody in the Starbucks and you feel eyes on
yep,
you. You look and there's somebody looking at you.
yep,
The thing about the experiences at the school is, well, it's hard to describe that there was a presence. The good thing was it wasn't a malevolent.
right,
It was either benevolent or neutral. It never felt threatening, but it was there.
mm-hmm,
And it would just kind of happen. And it got to the point where I'm, doing my shutdown every night. And then I started talking to the ghosts because I forgot another ghost story that happened to me earlier, but I moved into this place where things started to fall and tapping. And I actually spoke out loud. I said, "Hey, I know you're here. I'm here. I hope you don't mind. I'm here."
that's what my mom used to do that
Yeah.
because
So
we
I
had
did the
haunted
same
houses.
thing at the school. I'd be walking along at night by myself saying, it was kind of stupid to hear about it. I'd say, "Hey, my name is Mark. You
Mm-hmm.
probably hear a lot. I know you're here, and I'm cool with that.
That's cool. I think that's cool.
Me being here." And that seemed to help,
Hmm.
but but the presence was always there, and it would come and go.
Hmm.
It became very strong when I got to the library. And I should back up and say, with Maria and Amber's visit, when they got poked, and Maria mentioned the girl in the photo room, we also went to the library. I forgot to mention that. And as soon as the door opened, Maria looks to her right to this corner, and she goes, "This is his area." She wasn't
Wow.
talking to the female ghost now. She said, "This is his area. He's not harmful. He just wants his area to be respected.
Hmm.
He's a very benevolent, protective."
And what area was this that she said
In
was?
the library,
Oh,
in
okay.
the corner of the library.
Okay.
So back to me walking around talking to the ghosts and feeling watched. So part of my shutdown routine, as I did the classrooms, then I would quickly pop in to clock out and walk across the landing. And the last thing I would do, swing open the door to the library, check to make sure there's not a student who's fallen asleep at her chair or whatever, turn off the air conditioning, turn off the lights. After I started getting the sense of being watched, I would come into the library and say goodnight. I'd turn to the right and say goodnight.
Mm-hmm.
And I just start my mornings by opening the library, saying good morning.
It's cool.
Because I want to be respectful of whatever is there that wants the space to be respected.
Yeah, that's great.
And I didn't go into that corner area unless I had to.
Mm-hmm.
And that seemed to work. I could always feel being watched almost any place I went in that building.
Wow.
So we're into we're not far into this, 2 or 3 weeks into it.
Amazing.
And so I'm doing my night class. Everybody's gone except myself and my students. And there's a door with like a long window in it. And the cleaning staff, Hugo and Jesus, were under instructions: never go into the classrooms when there's a class going on. Don't interrupt the teachers. Don't bother them, stuff like that. So my students one night were testing or doing something. It's pretty quiet. I look over at the window and I see Hugo's face, and I said to my class, "Excuse me a second." And he pulls me down the hall, and he's like aggravated. And I said, "Where's Jesus?" He says, "He won't come in." What happened? He said last night, and this guy is being totally serious. He's not messing with me. He was scared.
Mm-hmm.
He said the previous night he was mopping the unisex bathroom and he kept the door propped open. And he said he saw out of the corner of his eye something coming down the hallway. And he looked, it was the upper half of a woman's body floating.
Whoa.
And he said, and he's looking terrified as he's telling me this. He said, she passed right in front of me as she disappeared, and there was this blast of icy cold air.
Wow.
So he's telling me this. I'm like, we got to change jobs. I want your job. Geez, I want to see the ghost. So I start talking to everybody else at the school, and I find out that people have seen apparitions there, not just the overalls guy. More about him in a second.
Mm-hmm.
But there's a guy, his name is Steve. He had seen an apparition of a woman in the hallway. And I heard from Amanda, maybe, that a couple of students 3 or 4 years prior had seen some sort of apparitions that scared them so badly that they quit school and their parents got a full refund.
Wow. And
around this time, of course, all the staff and the teachers and the people in the office and the bosses, everybody's kind of getting wind that there's weird stuff going on in this school building. But as teachers and as staffers, we were under strict instructions: do not talk about the ghosts to the students. Hey, it could scare some of them. They could leave. It would be bad for business.
Mm-hmm.
I fully got that.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the bosses went to Amanda and said, if you talk about this in front of students, consider that a job killer.
Wow.
Okay, the message was pretty clear. So we didn't talk about that at all. Actually, right before this, I think, is when I went to one of my bosses. His name is Paul. He was a real cool guy. There were several owners of the school.
Mm.
Paul wasn't the one who made the job killer
Right.
reference. I think before that happened, things are cooking. Okay, Hugo sees the apparition, and I called Paul, and I'm pretty aggravated. It's like 4 p.m. I said, "Can you meet me in front of the school? I need to talk to you right away." He goes, "Okay, I'll be there in 5 minutes." So I meet Paul at the bench out front. We sit down, we each light a cigarette. First thing he says is, "You're not quitting." I guess the sound of my voice was so like, I need to see you right away. No, I'm not quitting. Oh, and he was like, well, what's this about? And I said, and I was really reluctant at first to mention this. I said, I think the building is haunted. And he's like, really? Tell me. He was very open to it. And he told me that when he was doing some summer job years before, he was working deep down inside the Queen Mary, some construction job. And he had some unsettling experiences there. So he was very open to it. And at that time, I said, so he was open to it. I told him what was happening. He was really intrigued. And he said, just keep this between you and I, because if some of the other bosses hear about it, they may not be as open to it.
Mm-hmm.
Excuse me, which turned out to be the case. And I think it was around that time I mentioned that I'd like to do a ghost hunt. And he was, let me think about that. And he said, basically, yeah, we could do it. And it'd have to be like on a Saturday night when there's nobody around and that nobody else can know about it. So I'm maybe going out of order here, but it really doesn't matter because the craziness is, it's so wild. So at this point, I'm thinking, Jesus Christ, we have ghosts here because people are sensing them, seeing them. There's physical activity, poltergeist activity. So where does one look for ghost hunters? I click ghost hunters in Southern California. And there happened to be a place called, it's not around anymore, called the Southern California Ghost Hunter Society. Yeah,
this is before ghost hunting became such a big thing too, right?
Oh yeah, this is 2007. It's before all those stupid TV shows. They ghost hunt for 45 minutes and don't find jack.
Yeah, shit. Just scare each other. And
yeah, they should have come to the school.
Yeah, no kidding.
So I write to this guy, Todd, said, I work at a school. There's a lot of things happening. And he wrote back the next day, can you tell us where the school is, what's happening, blah, blah, blah. We'd like to do an investigation. That's probably when I called Paul and said, hey, I've got some people that can do this. Can we? So he gave it his blessing.
Cool. He did sound cool.
This guy, Todd, says, I'd like to bring Dr. Barry Taff. Do you know who Barry Taff is?
No.
Have you seen the movie The Entity?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
He's the guy that investigated that case.
Oh, wow. Okay.
He's a world-famous parapsychologist. He's done like 3,000 investigations. And when Todd said, yeah, we'd like to bring Barry Taff, myself, and you, and a couple people if you want, let's keep it small. So I'm like, Barry Taff, yeah. Do I know who he is? Yeah, absolutely.
That's awesome.
It's pretty cool. And Maria came out, so we did it on a Saturday night. It was Dr. Taff, Todd, myself, my buddy Stefan, and Maria came out for the beginning part. I do know in retrospect, when you do these ghost hunting things, when you bring a whole bunch of people and a whole bunch of equipment, generally things don't happen. But if you keep it small, 1 or 2 people, just your cell phones or something, you have a better chance of getting something happening. Because, I presume ghosts are not stupid. If they're aware of you, they can see what you're doing. If you're bringing, basically what happened on the ghost hunt night was, it was actually pretty funny at first. Todd gave Maria, Stefan, and I little microphones, remote microphones, so we could make commentary because the whole night was being recorded.
Mm-hmm.
So we started around 10 or 11 p.m. Everything was being recorded. They wanted to have live, hear everybody speaking live if something happened.
Yeah, like walkie-talkies almost.
Yeah, a little remote thing. But they're still setting up. So Maria and I decided to go to the coffee house for coffee. It's still open. And right before this, Dr. Taft came in and, he started talking, not about ghosts, but he was talking about all these movie ideas he'd come up with in the 70s and 80s, like he'd come up with Superman, or he had some lawsuits going on because every big movie that came out, he'd treatment for it that people had ignored. So he's like telling me about all these movies he's done. I'm like, well, that's neat. But Maria and I go for coffee. We're walking down this long alleyway, and I forgot about the little mic.
Oh, no.
He's talking about these movies. I wish we went to ghost hunting or something. This is like Ghostbusters gone wrong. And Maria points. So, because they can hear everything I'm saying. They go back. Dr. Taft's like, okay, we're ready to begin.
Oh, my God. Embarrassing.
It was pretty weird. He was a great guy, very knowledgeable. He brought all his equipment. He and Todd had, I forget the names of the equipment I knew at one point, but they had computers, all the gear. We had set up video cameras all over the school.
Wow.
Maria had to take off because she had to go pick up her kid or something. So it's just Stefan and I, Dr. Taft and Todd. And we sat there from 10 o'clock to, I don't know, 4 or 5 in the morning. Nothing.
Nothing. That's the thing about these experiences.
Not a goddamn thing.
Yeah, it's always when you're not expecting it, when you're not thinking about it. At least that's my experience. Is it's almost like the more you want it, or the more you try to make it happen, or try and see them, the less it happens.
It's almost like, I'm presuming whatever presence is there can see what a human is doing, because they'll turn the doorknob or they'll make the cell phone move, which implies that they can visually see what's going on.
Right.
So you see a whole group of people with the intention of seeing them or getting some activity. If I was a spirit or a ghost, I'd go, oh yeah, watch this.
Yeah.
With you, and we're not going to do a damn thing. But the next day, oh yeah, it's going to click on again when nobody's there recording it, because we're messing with you.
Yeah.
I got that feeling.
That must have been such a disappointment.
Well, it was, but the thing was, I think it was more disappointing for Dr. Taft and Todd from Southern California Ghost Hunters, because they had to leave. They stayed 6 or 7 hours. I could still go back the next day.
Right.
So, cut to other stuff happening. As I said, in my day class, it was a bigger room, and I had about 22 students, and I got a co-teacher at one point when this was going on, named Carrie Ann. And of course, being part of the staff, she knew what was going on. We talked about the ghost. She thought that was pretty cool. But we also knew, zip our lips when it came to the students. You could not talk to the students about it. It was a little awkward when occasionally some student would, like the cell phone incident, they'd mention that, and you're like,
Yeah.
So one morning we're there, and Mark's got his quiet rule. The room is doing for sculpting and mold making. So way back in the corner, we had a huge laboratory sink, one of those big metal ones, the big deep ones where you can put a 5-gallon bucket in with the big faucets. So I'm in there, Carrie Ann's in there. We got 20 girls, and they're all kind of gathered around in a circle listening to me give a talk about foam latex or whatever the hell I was. It's early in the morning, and it's very quiet, and all of a sudden the sink goes on full blast. One of the handles just turned on by itself.
Wow.
And in that big metal hollow sink, the echo, the sound was so loud, people jumped, a few girls screamed.
Wow.
What the hell is that? And
that's the physical turning of a lever.
The handle in this thing is this long. You got to.
Yep, I know those. Yeah, that's amazing.
You know this type of sink.
Yeah.
So I head over to the sink. I'm like making something up really quick. Oh, it's nothing. It's nothing. The the plumbers are doing some work upstairs and they have to turn on the water extra pressure or something. And so it's going to make things go off everywhere. I said, don't worry about it, guys. And go on break, by the way. Go, take a 20-minute break. Take 30. Can you just go? You know? Because these girls were like, they were shaking. It
Wow.
was scary. And Carrie, they leave the room. Carrie Ann looks at me and she goes, dude, what the fuck?
What?
And right behind her, the faucet goes on again. Just a little tease.
Wow.
And she walks over, turns it off. We didn't even know what to say. It was so crazy.
That's amazing.
That was physical.
Yeah, right. That's not like an electrical current or a loose wire that possibly is causing something. It's like physical movement of something.
And they're all the stuff, the door handles, the lights on, chairs being moved.
Yep.
Around this time when it's all going on, there was I think it was a July 4th party, actually, because this stuff started in late May. Everybody started to find out about it, all staffers and all that. And there was a July 4th party. I didn't go to it, but it was given by the head of the school. And Amanda went to it. And there was another teacher there named Yvonne, I believe. And the director of the school was teasing Amanda in front of a few people. I was just in a nice way, saying, oh yeah, Amanda keeps saying she sees this guy in in overalls with black hair at the top of the stairs. And this other woman, Yvonne, looks over because you've seen him too. So Amanda and Yvonne had experiences with the overalls man, but they didn't know about each other's stories. So when I found this one, it's really cool. Yvonne had been teaching 2 or 3 years before this, and she kept seeing. Now, keep in mind, Amanda saw a guy in overalls on the landing. Sometimes she said he'd be walking back and forth.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes he'd be leaning over the railing, watching the students leave. He had black hair, slicked back black hair.
Right.
Yvonne saw a man in overalls with gray hair. He was older looking, but he had the overalls and the black boots. And he would always be walking down the hall, at the end of the hall, shuffling, looking down, and go down the last couple stairs. And as he walked, he would disappear.
Wow.
She saw him 2 or 3 times.
Wow.
So Amanda and Yvonne are swapping notes about overalls, man. So I'm thinking, must be one of the Orr brothers. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It'd be so interesting to find the Orr family and try and learn information about what they looked like and who worked there. And I mean, it'd be quite a job, but,
yeah, well, I think, do a little investigative genealogy and, yeah, I think today with the internet and ancestry.com,
right,
track down people on Facebook and saying, hey, it was so-and-so or your great grandfather.
Right.
You may look into it. I've always been curious. I'm also curious about the girl.
Yeah.
Because
and the blood, and the blood.
And the blood.
It's interesting.
I've always been intrigued by what was I just lost my train of thought.
I'm sorry.
No, it's all right. I've always wondered who she is because I got different vibes. Like I never felt a mean spirit there. I never felt threatened. I felt watched. Absolutely felt watched. But when I went into the library, it was actually always very calm there. I could sense something maybe a little bit. I never felt. It was always very benevolent. It was this protector guy.
Right.
I believe it was definitely this fellow, this man. But the other presence was more, I don't even say playful, doing pranks and just trying to get you. And around the time all this was happening, well, whenever, I had to do my shutdown one night. I'm there alone. So I go around the whole building, do the shutdown, air conditioning, lights, clock out. And remember, whenever I went into the library, anytime you go into the library, the students leave the 10 black swivel chairs. They're just scattered. Oh, they're all random.
Yeah, students do not
Yeah.
leave chairs arranged.
You know, when the cleaning guys, I'll get to that in a second. So I clock out, shoot across the landing, open the door, say, I'm about to say goodnight. And out of the corner of my eye, I look, and then there's the chairs in a perfect circle as Sean had seen them from, and it was for me.
Wow.
And I have to tell you, I've never experienced this before or since, but it took my breath away. It was, I opened the door and saw this, and I went, I couldn't even move. It was so deliberate.
Wow.
And it was deliberate.
Yeah.
It was meant to scare me, and it did.
Yeah.
It was, and I had my little BlackBerry. If I can ever activate that BlackBerry, there's one photo on it of these fucking chairs.
Oh, wow.
My hand is shaking, and I took the picture. It was just like,
knowing that it was for you too, it makes it extra creepy, extra scary.
And I had been in the library maybe half an hour before to get some research thing for a student to show her. Students left, and then I go in, and there's a perfect circle. So I see, I wanted to see Hugo, the cleaning guy. I never saw him again. I called, they got a new cleaning guy, and I called him up. School said, what happened to Hugo? And says, oh, he quit.
Wow.
So there's a new cleaning guy. I think, remember, it's Carlos? I don't remember his name.
He'd be a guy, Hugo would be a guy to talk to as well.
I'm gonna track him down. I'm gonna track him down somehow.
Because if he quit for that reason, who knows?
Something scared him so bad, he just decided not to come back.
Yeah.
And he saw the floating woman. I can't imagine what else.
Yeah.
But after the chair thing happened to me, scared the shit out of me. Even though it scared the shit out of me, I don't feel it was Overall's man. It was not him. It was a different, because I was friendly and conversational with him, saying good morning, good night. I was very respectful of his space. As crazy as that sounds, that's how I feel. But when the chair thing happened, also there's a new cleaning guy. And I brought him up into the office and I need to ask you a strange question. Can you, what's your routine? I think he'd maybe been there a couple of days by then. I don't remember. But he'd cleaned, he had a routine. I said, can you please show me how you clean this room? Just kind of quickly. So he looks at me like, what type of stupid question is that? And he pretends to be wiping a counter. I said, well, what do you do with the chairs? Do you arrange them? Do you push them out of the way? And he just walks around and goes, I just move them with my butt if I need to. I said, do you do anything else? And he goes, then I leave. And I showed him the picture and I said, so you don't do this? And he goes, no. Wow. I mean, I knew that already. But I just confirm it. That was pretty crazy. And there's a couple more stories. If you're still up for?
Oh, of course, absolutely. I keep looking. I keep looking at my software to make sure this is still recording because of all the stuff that's happened to you. I could just imagine like something weird happening and glitching out. So I've got my eye on it and everything's good.
Cool. So I think the coolest thing that happened at the end of the 2007 stuff, I decided to get there. Well, I always got there early. I was thinking of getting an EVP machine to do electronic voice phenomena in the library. But to be honest, I felt that would be kind of intrusive and disrespectful.
Yeah, and you didn't want to disrespect them.
I didn't do that. I knew that this fellow in the library wanted to be respected, and I felt that would be the wrong thing to do, and I didn't do it. But I got there early one morning around 7:30. Classes are at 8. I pop in the teacher's room to throw my stuff, and Carrie Ann is there. She's reading Harry Potter, just sitting scrunched in the chair. And morning, Carrie Ann. Morning. She was like totally into this book. I said, I'm gonna just check my email. She goes, okay. She wouldn't get away from this book. She was totally into her Harry Potter.
Right.
And I go across the room. I'm in the library and I check my email from there. So I'm in this room with 10 chairs, completely alone, checking my email. And on a whim, I just said over my shoulder, "Is there anyone here?" And it was quiet for a few minutes. And all of a sudden, I wish I could duplicate the sound. Behind me, the door handle just starts rattling, just madly.
Wow.
Up and down and down. And I actually watched the security video of it happen later that day, where I'm sitting there and you can see the handle just start going like this. And you see me jump,
Oh my God.
walk over to the door. And,
Oh my God. That's so scary.
and then it stops. And like I open the door, and there's nobody there. There's nobody. I walk across to the teacher room, open the door. Carrie Ann's still there. Hey, Carrie Ann. What? It wasn't her. She's tucked into her book. That was
Yeah.
cool. And I have to tell you, before this happened, Hugo told me about walking down the hall with Jesus, and they heard the door to the store rattling. And as they creeped closer, they heard sound of breathing, like a woman out of breath.
Wow.
Running. And they said that scared the crap out of them. And at the time, I thought, if that door handle stuff happens to me, I'm out of there. But by then, by the time it did happen to me, and the chairs still scare me.
Yeah.
By the time the door handle happened, it was actually really cool. I felt privileged because I got an answer to my question.
Right.
There's somebody here. And that was an answer.
Yeah.
I felt really, that was such a cool thing.
Yeah, that's amazing. What a great attitude to have.
And then it kind of died down after about 2.5 months, maybe 3 months.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of returned to normal. And as I said, this was the summer of 2007. And I left the school in October 2007. And I have to tell you, I was kind of bummed because for 3 years, nothing had happened. We had all this intense poltergeist activity for a couple of months, then nothing for 3 years. It really kind of bummed me out because it was a cool part of working there. I mean, I loved working there. I loved teaching. I loved my students. I loved the people I worked with. But, having ghosts was a big plus, man. That was nice. So
I totally get it.
3 years later, I'm going to do a little chapstick and light a cigarette. 3 years later, I'm about to leave. And I was teaching, I think I might have been back to teaching days and nights. I didn't teach days and nights the whole time I was there. I don't remember. But I was feeling bummed. So I'm walking around at night in the school and I started talking to the ghosts again. I said, I'm leaving in a few days, leaving the job, and just want to say goodbye. It sounds corny and stupid to say that, but that
doesn't sound like that to me. I'm totally with you.
Yeah, and so I'd go up in the library and pop in, and I always said good morning, good evening. I said, hey, I'm leaving in a few days here, and just wanted to say whatever I said,
Right.
And it was a few days before I left, and nothing happened. I didn't get any door handle response. It was kind of a bummer. I was very bummed.
Yeah.
And literally the day before I left, or that day, I sent you a picture of the classroom with the green pages on the wall, right?
I don't think you did. Let me see. I think
was another incident. I should actually tell about that first.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. You did with the cat.
Yeah, there were two students. In fact, if they see this podcast, please track me down. There were two sisters. They were really cool, and they had a cat named Layla or Lola.
Mm-hmm.
It was this really chill cat. She would come for photo shoots. So they brought Layla one day, and they know I'm a cat person now. We brought Layla to see me. So it's after class one day. The two girls bring in Layla. And Layla's just, kind of looking around. At one point, she looks in the corner behind the door, and she puffs up and
wow.
Hisses and starts backing up. And one of the girls goes, geez, did you see a ghost or something? And that was at the exact spot where 3 years later, before I'm about to leave, I'm in that room. I'm in the very spot by the corner where Layla had hissed. And I was kind of leaning on the counter, talking to a student about something. And, behind me is the wall. This far away behind me is the wall. And I'm talking to this girl, and all of a sudden a finger pokes me in the back, down by my belt. This finger pokes me quite hard, drags slowly up my back to around my neck.
Wow.
And while this is happening, I'm trying to keep a straight face to this student who's asking me a question. And she goes, "Are you all right?" And I'm like, "I'm fine." Because I'm physically experiencing a ghost finger moving at my back. And to me, that was like,
Yeah, right.
really, it was a goodbye.
Wow, what an amazing goodbye.
Yeah,
That's
so
like
after 3 years of nothing, I get that, and it's like just so cool.
yeah, that's kind of like
Amazing.
almost the best one in a way, That's physical contact. That's
Like the
incredible.
cherry on top.
Yep.
Yeah, physical contact, which last thing I expected.
That's amazing.
I was hoping to see an apparition like Hugo and the other people. Never didn't see the overalls man, but to have that physical contact, and I get the strong feeling, had the strong feeling and still have today, it was the girl.
Yeah.
I,
Wow. That's incredible. That
or
does. What's that?
maybe it was one of the Orr brothers who overalls guy. I don't know.
I don't know. I think, a lot of this stuff is about feeling and feelings. I think it's like, you kind of feel these things. I think it's okay to trust your feelings when it comes to this stuff.
Yeah.
I had, this reminds me of a contact I had recently, and it was during an out of body. This is really recent. This is probably 3 or 4 months ago. I was going to sleep. Just a quick aside, because it reminded me of the finger up the back, and I snore so much I wake my wife up, so I started sleeping the other way, so my head is like at her feet. And
Wow.
yeah, it's like that worked because I kept waking her up, and so I started sleeping that way, and I was getting in that weird state. I was starting to fall asleep, and all of a sudden I felt these two, and I knew they were a woman's hands go like along my neck and like pull, like massaging my hair.
Wow.
Yeah. And it didn't feel evil though. Like it did, because I've had stuff that felt something is bad here. I've had that for sure when I was going out of body, and this didn't. It felt scary because it was like I was awake and aware, and I felt these two cool ghostly hands like running their hands through my hair, and but it didn't feel bad, but it was kind of scary being touched like that.
That reminds me of my story, Ed's experience at the Heart Building at Paramount.
Oh yeah, I want to hear that.
I recently gave a podcast for Delta Flyers, the Star Trek podcast for Robbie McNeil and Garrett Long, the actors, and I watched some of the older episodes, and Garrett had interviewed Ed and LZ, who were the two security guards for Star Trek Voyager. And Garrett mentioned the Heart Building ghost because Ed had an experience, and he told it there. And he told me at the time, basically, Ed Herrera was a really tall guy and big guy. He's, not the type of person you mess with.
Mm-hmm.
And before he got on permanent staff as one of the two security guards on Star Trek Voyager, he was, a new security guard where they'd send him wherever in the lot at whatever hours. And he was working the graveyard shift. And his job was to go around and check all the office buildings, make sure everything's safe and secure. And he went into the Hart building, which is in the southwest area of the lot, the oldest building in the lot, I believe. And he said as he opened the door, he's there at 3 a.m. with his flashlight. He opens the door and he smelled like a flowery rose scented perfume, which kind of was really prevalent, and then it kind of dissipated. Didn't think too much of it. It's like maybe it's the remnants of perfume from somebody who left late or whatever. So he goes upstairs, and the hallways are really narrow, and he's a very wide guy. So he's walking down the hallway with his flashlight, turns around to come back, and he smells that flowery perfume again. He said it was right in his nose.
Wow.
And all of a sudden, and he stands there, he's not kind of frozen. He said there were female hands. I guess he sensed it. He said female hands caressing his shoulders and his neck.
Wow.
Like a lover almost.
That's kind of like how my hands were.
He flew out of there, just practically breaking the door down as he got out.
Wow.
So creepy.
It's so creepy.
And he's not the only one. There's back then in the 90s when he told me this, you couldn't find anything out about it, but if you Google Hart building ghost, many people have had experience.
What lot is this?
Paramount.
Okay. Yeah, I think someone was telling me about that. Like there's a lot of sightings from that building, right?
Apparently there's a lot of people who've seen her, but she appears mostly from men.
Oh, interesting.
This is mostly with men. And from what I heard, I don't know if this took place in the 90s or the 80s or the 50s, but there was a writers meeting downstairs. A bunch of people sitting around at a table, and all of a sudden one of the writers just starts almost having a seizure. And they're like, what's going on? What's going on? He goes, there's hands all over me.
Oh my God.
So, the Hart building goes, yeah. Paramount is a cool place. It's got a lot of history. It's right next to Hollywood Cemetery.
Yeah, right.
There's another security guard told me of chasing someone one night. Apparently an intruder late in the middle of the night. They're chasing, a bunch of security guards are chasing this person. And the person ran right through the wall into the cemetery and disappeared.
That is crazy.
And I never had a ghostly experience there, but one night, I can't explain it. Star Trek Voyager, we had stages, our predominant stages were stages 8 and 9. 8 was the bridge, 9 was engineering. Big, beautiful set, and had long hallways. We'd moved to stage 8, but I left one of my many makeup kits way, way down the hallway in stage 9. So I went back there alone to get it. And it was kind of like being at the school. I grabbed my kit and I'm walking down this hallway set, and all of a sudden I felt like it was being watched, but this was not like the school would be years later. This was not a good feeling.
Mm-hmm.
This was a mean, malevolent, I'm watching you.
Yeah.
Creepy feeling. It just, 1 second was not there. Then all of a sudden I'm getting this, and I'm walking down this hallway which curves. It got so strong, I started running.
Wow.
Could not explain this. I didn't see anything. I didn't hear anything. I didn't smell anything. But this malevolent feeling coming down on me was just like out of nowhere. And before or since, I have not had any experience like that ever.
Wow.
Certainly Paramount. And I ran into stage 8, ran to one of my crew friends there. I'm like, and they looked at me and said, "Are you okay? What happened?" I'm like, I can't explain it. Never mind. Nothing happened. Things fine. But it really, really shook me up. Never figured that out, because I'd worked on stage 9 many, many times. I'd never been the only person on the sound stage alone. I don't know. I couldn't figure that one out.
Yeah. That's scary. It's
yeah, there's not there's 2 more things about the school I have to mention.
Oh, good. Yeah, absolutely.
So I mentioned I got poked in the back by the finger a day or 2 before I left in 2010. Excuse me. I thought that was the end of it, but I'm friends with Amber still today. Amber was Maria's daughter. They're the two psychic mother-daughter that came to visit
Mm-hmm.
school in 2007. So Amber was about 11 or 12 at the time. She's almost 30 today. But I remember one time when I was teaching my first class in the fall of 2006, before all the ghostly shit happened, about a year before the ghostly stuff happened, Maria was my student. And one night she couldn't get a sitter for Amber. So she brought Amber. And I said, do you mind? Or she said, do you mind if she hangs out? I said, no, just she can hang out. She was, I think, 11 at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And I almost forgot about this. But I remember joking with Amber. I said, hey, when I'm not in the classroom, you're in charge and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Anyway,
Right.
Amber and I were talking about the ghostly stuff recently. I don't know, not too many months ago, maybe a year ago. And I was telling her, talking to her about Overalls Man. And she goes, well, I saw him that one night. I was there when I was a kid. I go, why didn't you ever tell me this? Oh, I didn't even think about it. That night in 2006, when I'm there, Amber had gone to the bathroom, the one downstairs, and she glanced up to the landing and saw a guy in overalls.
Wow.
She didn't know who he was, but Amber's very psychic. I think she sensed that he was not a human.
Mm-hmm.
But she didn't mention it because she sees ghosts all the time.
Right.
It's normal for her. And when she told me this, less than a year ago, I'm like, you're kidding. You saw him? Overalls Man before all this stuff happened? She goes, well, yeah, And there was one other thing that happened. This is less than a year ago. Now, after I left the school, they obviously got another teacher to replace me and then another. And I'm very good friends with a guy named Mike, who's he's in the effects world, and he was teaching that class for a while. And I was talking to him. I said, hey, did you ever experience anything weird, ghostly at the school? And he said, no, but there was one time where there's another teacher. Mike was there late alone at night, just the two teachers. And he said he went to the bathroom, came back and looked through the window into the classroom. He could see this other teacher talking to someone who wasn't there.
Mm.
And Mike opened the door of the person. Everything's good here. So
wow.
It's about
yeah, I could see, like, someone that had the time and the gumption and the resources tracking all of these people down and, really
looking into it. You know what I'm really curious about? I have not been to that building since 2010. So 13 years I haven't physically been in the building. It'd be interesting to go there and sit in the library before class and
say hello.
Say, hey, do you remember me?
That's amazing. Yeah, what
even lean against the wall on the outside and see if you pick up something, because whatever is there has been there a long time. And I don't know, my feeling is if it remembered me after 3 years, it'll probably remember me today.
Yeah.
Who knows?
I bet. Yeah, what an incredible story, man. Like, it's like I said,
there's things I left out, but yeah, that was pretty crazy.
Unbelievable. It really is. Like you said, I think it is a privilege to have experienced that. I can't tell you how many people I know that want to see a ghost, that have never seen a ghost, and they just are frustrated by it, and it's a real gift to have an experience like that, I think.
Who knows? The only time I've seen a ghost twice. Once happened during all this, and I've never been able to explain it. I don't know. I didn't see any apparition at the school.
Right.
While this was going on, it was funny. My buddy Stefan, who I mentioned, was there on ghost hunting night. 1408, the haunted hotel movie had just come out, and I was going to rent video. And my buddy Stefan goes, "Yeah, that may not be the right thing for you to be watching right now." Anyway, I I was living at the time in a duplex, and the other duplex, it was never rented. So it was nice. I had the whole building to myself. It was very quiet. And one weekend, I got the kitchen windows open, the front door open. I'm cooking. And there, outside the kitchen window was a balcony, not a balcony, kind of a porch balcony,
Hmm.
which had some stairs that went this way. And I'm cooking. I'm like, thinking about what I'm making. I glance over the window, and all of a sudden, in retrospect, it's weird. It happened so fast. There's an old man in a black and white shirt who comes up through the balcony, comes up into my apartment door. And it happened so fast, I put down my whatever I was cooking with, ran into the living room because I'm like ready to punch some guy who just ran into my apartment. Then I'm going, wait, he didn't walk this way. He came up through the floor.
Oh my God.
This happened so fast, and he was an old skinny guy with gray hair and a black and white striped shirt. It happened so fast, and then it was done.
Wow.
I never figured that out. It was like, yeah. But the other thing that happened was last year, actually, I lost a few cats in recent years. One was this wonderfully affectionate guy named Mr. Lee, who's a black and white mask and mantle cat. And I think about him. I think about my cats all the time. And it was just totally out of the blue. I was going from the kitchen into the living room. And again, this happened in a millisecond, half a second, quarter second. I glanced down and I saw the back half of a cat with his tail, black and white, walking beside me, and then it was gone.
Wow.
And it looked like Mr. Lee.
Wow.
I can't explain that, but it felt really cool.
Yeah.
Because Amber, the psychic lightning rod, she and I hooked up once for coffee at Pete's in Pasadena. We're talking about ghostly stuff, psychic stuff. And I asked her if she could pick up on anything for me. And she goes, well, there's two cats that are walking around your legs right now.
Wow.
And I said, way back when I had Lucy and Iggy, one a gray cat, one a white cat. And Amber didn't know about those cats.
Wow.
And she said at this Pete's Coffee, there's two cats that are going around your legs. I said, well, they look like one is white and one is gray.
That's amazing. Does Amber do this for a living? Is she the one you said?
It does.
Oh, wow.
She has a channel called Channel with Amber on YouTube.
Cool.
And she does psychic readings for people. And she also just opened up a coffee house in Burbank called Wish House.
Huh.
So along what I call Horror Highway by Dark Delicacies and Halloween Town, she's right over there.
Horror Highway.
Yeah, Magnolia, and I forget if you just go Wish House on Instagram, you'll find it. But her psychic thing is Channel with Amber, and she's got a podcast too.
Really?
Yeah.
Cool. I'm gonna look her up. In fact,
one of her early podcasts, she had an early episode on ghosts, and yeah, she's quite an inspiration.
That's so cool.
Yeah, and she's told me things that, in fact, without getting too much into it, we were meeting at Pete's that day because I'd been intrigued with a murder of a young girl in another state that happened 30 years ago. And I asked Amber one day if I gave her some basic information, showed her some photos, if she could give me a psychic reading, because the girl's murder was unsolved, still is. I said, do you think you could give me a psychic reading and see what you pick up? And she goes, of course. And met her at Pete's Coffee. And I had a notebook, a little yellow legal pad and a pen. And Amber looked at this girl's date of birth, the date she died, where it happened, basically. And then the weirdest thing, she closed her eyes and kind of looked down. And she was like that for a couple of minutes. In fact, I remember, I don't know if Amber knows this, but I got done. I'm like looking up at her because she was like totally out of it. And then she just raises her head and starts giving information, some very specific.
Wow.
Since it's a name, it could be this, could be Hamilton, could be Hammer. She starts rattling off this stuff. And I'm writing it down. I said, "Can you slow down?" Because she just gave me all this information about this unsolved murder. And that was just our first session on it. We did 2 other ones where I didn't say anything about what I was sending. I just said, well, let's get on the phone live and open folder A, look at picture 1, 2, and 3, do this in order, and tell me your impressions. And long story short, out of the first session, I got so much specific information that I actually called the FBI agent still in charge of the unsolved case. Because they had the police and they had the FBI. And I said, this is going to sound crazy, but I got this from my friend who's very psychic, and she's been very accurate about things in the past about me, people in my life personally. I wanted you to have this. And there was one specific piece of information I could never figure out. Well, this little girl disappeared. She was seen walking away with a man, but nobody saw anybody drive away. So she was only seen walking away with this man in a parking lot. But Amber had told me she's driving away with this guy, but she's in the back seat, which is weird. Right?
Yeah.
So if you're driving and there's somebody in the front seat and there's a little kid in the back seat, it usually means, well, the only time you put a person in the back seat is like you're a taxi or maybe Uber.
Right.
Or you're a parent with the kid in the safety seat.
Right.
So if a man's abducting a little girl, why does he put her in the back seat? I thought that was so off the wall and weird.
Yeah, it is kind of weird.
So I gave that information to the FBI. And I don't know, 3 or 4 years later, some news feed comes up, my Google alert about this murder, where a witness came forward after 25, 30 years, who said she saw the girl being driven away on the day of the murder, and she was in the backseat of the car.
Wow.
When this guy said that, I almost fell out of my chair.
Wow.
Because it's so weird and specific and unusual.
Yeah.
And Amber told me this at the time. I always wondered about it. Like, this doesn't seem right, but that's what this guy who was a mechanic next door said. He's still unsolved. But
when was the murder? What year?
1989.
Okay. Huh. Wow. She's good.
Yeah. She's very good.
Yeah, that's amazing. What an incredible story, man. We're already longer than I said I'd keep you, but
we talked a lot. There's one more. No, just kidding.
No, I'm here for it. I love it. I'm so excited about this.
Before we log off, let me just really quickly check my notes and see if I didn't forget one of the biggies.
Okay.
No, I think we got most of it. Yeah, there's quite a list.
Yeah, that list is incredible.
Yeah.
I just was gonna say, I'll have to tell you. I don't know. Maybe we can get together for lunch or something. But I've got quite a story. Not like yours, but kind of similar, where it was a period of time where a lot of weird stuff was happening to me.
Well, we texted. We're just down the street.
Yeah, I know. We're so close. There's a place I take everyone called Zello, this pizza place that has cornmeal crust pizza in Arcadia. That if you like, it's really good. That's where I take everyone. But anyway, I'll talk to you about it later, because it's like, after hearing this story, it's like I kind of want to tell you this whole experience I had. I've kind of talked about it here and there on the podcast, but anyway, yeah, that was. I really appreciate you sharing this story with us. I know that people are going to be stoked to hear it. Again, I'm surprised it hasn't been featured on a TV show or something. So maybe someone will hear it and
more. I've been trying to push the script. I got Eric Roberts to say yes.
Really?
You know, but
Yeah, the
it's a
script must be cool.
hard thing to sell a movie, an indie movie these days.
Yeah.
Don't have a track record directing. It's a weird business.
Oh,
But
yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
Christ or drama. It's one thing I do want to say to your viewers about all this, and I'm sure people will be skeptical about a lot of it, and it is a lot. It's a lot of strange stuff. But when it happens to you and to people you know to be on the level and
Yep.
honest, and it's daily and nightly, it really kind of blows your mind. And I have to say, if I was a skeptic going into this summer at the school, I sure wouldn't have been at the end because it was physical, it was constant, um, it was amazing. Um, there's something there that we don't know about on a level that we maybe psychically can't usually connect to.
Yeah.
But when it's through, it's quite amazing. I did I did have one discussion with Amber before we go. I was discussing something with Amber about how she reaches people who passed on. And she said it's almost like a TV antenna. She has to have specifics like a name and a birth date,
Mm-hmm.
hopefully a birth time. And then she can connect to people. But she did tell me, I remember one time, she said, it's very difficult for people who passed on to connect with living people because there's a lot of energy required.
Mm-hmm.
Like it almost drains the battery.
Interesting.
So like if your mother passed on and you really want to see her spirit, you may get a sound or a voice
Mm-hmm.
or a movement of something, a smell for a second.
Yep.
You may get a tiny indication, but that takes a lot of energy effort for them to give us that little bit. So for a full-on apparition to appear is a big deal.
Right. Yeah, and that could be why a lot of times they say that entities are seen and ghost activity is centered around violent deaths and things like that, where maybe perhaps the energy was high at the moment of death. It was intense, and maybe that's why it leaves residual effects. Maybe, who knows? Who knows?
I know that my feeling is the energy imprints itself on structures. I think Stephen King has talked about that.
Right. Yeah.
Do you remember my friend Kevin Haney, the makeup artist?
Hey, he's a great makeup artist.
Shawshank Redemption.
I know Kevin.
Yeah, Kevin's great.
Yeah, he's awesome.
He's doing the makeup on that, and he's out in the actual prison in Ohio where all these bad things happened. And Kevin told me that one day Tim Robbins is there with his son.
This is on Shawshank Redemption, you said?
Yeah, Shawshank Redemption.
Okay.
Tim Robbins is there in the makeup chair, and the son is there. And his son looked around at all the walls and said something like, "Daddy, really bad things happened here, didn't they?" He picked up on it. And then Kevin said, a lot of the crew members picked up on it, the bad energy.
Oh, imagine.
The residual. Ugh.
Yeah, it absolutely places absorb energy. I really do believe that. You can sense energy walking into people's homes or encountering people. I've met, I'm sure you've met people where you meet them and you just get a bad feeling from them, or you get a good feeling and you feel kind of like you've known them, or, you can feel energy, I think,
Definitely.
And I think, places absolutely hold energy.
Well, my feeling is, if I can just say one more thing, there's electrical energy in the body. When the body dies, the energy has to go somewhere.
Right.
Where does it go? I think it changes form.
I agree.
That's, of course, one of those things you can't prove.
Yeah.
Just a gut feeling, which seems to make sense.
Yeah. I've been thinking, I always think about this stuff, honestly. I think about what it's like to die. And I think about all this stuff every day, pretty much. But I have been thinking recently about how it just does not make sense that when you die, everything just, there's nothing. It just doesn't
make sense.
It doesn't make sense. It doesn't go, you know what? It doesn't go in line with nature, because nature, everything continues. It's a continual thing that never stops. You know what I mean? It's like when an animal dies, it goes in, it goes into the ground, it nourishes the tree, blah, blah, blah. It's a constant cyclical thing. And it just does not make sense that when you drop dead, it's like, what is the point of life if it's like a short period and then nothing before it? It just doesn't.
It doesn't make sense.
Doesn't make sense to me.
When you think about it, when the universe was created and it was stars exploding, galaxies forming, I mean, that came down, and then it comes down to us, as human beings.
Right.
We're made from a stardust. As silly as that sounds, we are.
Absolutely.
Every living, because
it's incredible.
Earth was formed, and when a single cell organism happened out of that, the chemicals and minerals, here it forms, and that led to us. So when you go back in reverse, we are every living everything in the earth is made from stardust.
Right.
Incredible. Think about it.
It is.
And what you're saying is that the energy keeps evolving and recycling and going into somewhere into some other form.
Yeah.
It does not make sense at all that people die and then that's it. The energy has to go somewhere.
Yeah. And I'll tell you one last thing, aside from all that, between my out-of-body experiences, and I've had some pretty major psychedelic experiences where I've was like there in that some other higher realm of this kind of peaceful void, but mainly floating around. One of my I think the first major out-of-body I had an out-of-body in Italy when I was a kid, when I went on that show.
It's probably because it was a Charlie Band film.
No, it's funny. It's real fast, so I'll say it real fast. But there was a crate where they all the stuff was shipped, and it was full of popcorn peanuts. Or popcorn, or what, the packing peanuts.
Styrofoam things.
Yeah, styrofoam peanuts. And I was laying in it, and someone had given me, I forgot his name, gave me that book, The Prophet. You know that book, The Prophet?
Neil Gibran.
Yeah, the classic. And it was just, I was at the right age, and it would hit me. And I was interested in all spirituality, Eastern spirituality. I've always been into that sort of thing, Alan Watts and all this stuff. And so I was reading that book, and I was like, oh my God, this is incredible. And I was laying in that crate. And it was just like, if you've read the book, it's like really this kind of amazing, spiritual, beautiful poetry. And I read it and I felt like, wow, this is amazing. And I closed my eyes for a second and I just shot, boom, straight up through the roof, way up in the sky, like in a split second. And I opened my eyes and I was like, whoa. Like I felt like if I didn't open my eyes, I would have kept going. But it was like, normally, I'd have these out of body experiences after I'd fall asleep, and it would, take a while, and it's usually right before you go into that deep REM sleep. This was like, I closed my eyes and I just shot through. It was no drugs required. It was before I had tried any of that stuff, any of that psychedelic stuff. And, but the first time, also real quick, the first time I had, my first out of body, my first really positive one, it was after that pillow guy. I was living in my parents' garage that was converted into a music studio for my brother's band. So it was all covered with carpet, no light was getting in. And I just started floating around my room, and I had perfect clarity of mind. I was totally conscious, and it felt really good. It felt amazing. And I just knew instinctively or however, psychically in my mind, I was like, oh, this is what it's like when you die. And it was like, this is still me, but it's without all of the negative emotional baggage or fear or anything. And I just felt like a pure spirit. And it was after that, really, I kind of lost my fear of death, because it was like, this is the best feeling I've ever had in my life. Years later, as a drug experimenting adult, I'd taken ecstasy, and it felt exactly like being on ecstasy. But this was when I was a kid, before I'd done anything. And
mushrooms?
Yeah. Oh yeah, yeah.
But
I've had amazing experiences on mushrooms and uh, acid and ecstasy. Pretty much that's it. But after that, I floated around the room and I went through the wall and I could see that in between the wall. And it was in the morning. It was bright outside. As soon as I saw that bright, it just sucked me back into my body, and I just sat up straight like a rubber
it sounds
band
like
pulled
you
me.
have some very highly attuned abilities.
Yeah, it's very specific to out of body and some precognitive dreams. Whereas my wife sees spirits kind of a lot, which is another. There's tons more stories I'll have to tell you when we get together, um, but I've never been able to see things. Like she'll point to things and be like, "You don't see that right there," and I'm like, "I can't see it. I just can't see it." But she
Yeah.
doesn't have the out of bodies like I do, you know?
Amber sees spirits all the time. I used to have a girlfriend named Nancy, a makeup artist, and she could see people's auras.
Mm-hmm.
She was from Long Island, and she told me this one day. And I'm like, yeah, that's cool. I said, can you see my aura? She goes, yeah. I said, what? Can you describe it? She said, it's blue.
Mm-hmm.
I said, what does blue mean? She goes, healthy and happy and all that. It's pretty cool. And then one day she mentioned when she worked in Long Island, she was working in a beauty parlor in Amityville
Oh
back
wow.
in early 80s
Mm-hmm.
or 78 or something. And one day she saw, what's the guy's name? Ronald DeFeo, the one who killed his whole family that
Yeah.
became
Mm-hmm.
Amityville. She said he would walk on the street in front of their beauty parlor a lot. And I didn't think anything of it. When I thought about her auras, I said, hey, the Amityville horror guy, the murderer. And she goes, yeah. I said, when you saw him walking by the window, did you ever see his aura? And she goes, oh, yeah, all the time. I said, well, what color was it? She goes, black.
Wow.
There you go.
Wow, that's amazing. Perfect ending of the episode. Well, thanks again for coming on.
Hey, thank you, Chet.
I really enjoyed it. It was super fun.
Me too.
I know people are going to love this episode. I'm so
I'm
excited
glad
about
it's, oh my guts about all this stuff.
it. Yeah, right. You get it out of your system. I love it.
Get it done.
I am honored that you would do that on here. So
Happy to.
yeah. So the last thing we have to do is just say goodbye to the audience in whatever way you want.
Goodbye, audiences.
Goodbye, audience.
And
I spoke over you. What?
I said goodbye, audience, and have an open mind.
That's right. Thank you, everybody, for listening. Goodbye,
Thank you.
audience.